Welcome to episode 80 of the HooperCast. I'm being quiet again because somebody's napping. So, I just want to explain that this episode is just Sam and I talking about Mad Max Fury Road, and then Sam wanted to add some thoughts about Mad Men as well. So that is this week's episode. Enjoy. Mad Max Men, yo.
Okay, Sam. Well, we just left the theater from seeing Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes. You're going to be a lot more articulate than me. I speak like a caveman while I'm driving. Okay, so I'm going with expectation versus reality. I had heard a lot about this movie and about how it was awesome and it was nonstop. Overall, I thought the film was pretty good. What about you?
I'd agree with that, and I agree that we should, expectation versus how the movie actually was, because I heard a lot about it. Heard a lot, especially about people being upset about Charlize Theron being some sort of lead female role in this universe. Which, admittedly, I watched the Mad Max movies when I was a kid with my dad. I don't really remember them.
They're not very good.
In
my opinion.
I don't deny that. Mm-hmm. I don't doubt that. I'm sure that's
They're
true.
Super... Okay, I'll say this. What sets us apart from the other Mad Max movies, I have not seen Beyond Thunderdome. I heard it was a colossal train wreck. Was that this film was not super boring like the others are.
Didn't drag along?
I felt... Mad Max was very low budget.
Right.
And they didn't have... So I kind of understand. I don't know what Road Warrior's budget was, but I know that... I saw it, and everyone... It has 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, and I remember watching it. I bought it on Blu-ray without even seeing it. It's something I don't normally do. And I was like, well, this has 100%. I mean, how bad could it be? And I was very underwhelmed. I sold it a week later. I was disappointed. So with this one, when I kept hearing... I had no interest in this franchise, period, really.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
But I kept hearing that the pace was very good and that there was so much action and something. And I thought, okay, well, they've obviously... This is different from what I'm used to, so I'll go see it. And it certainly delivered on the on all those points.
Yeah, I mean, action-filled, not a lot of lull in between scenes or anything like that. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
But I still feel like it was overhyped.
I do too. I mean, it was great, but then what people were telling me, it's basically one big chase scene, and it is. But there's a point it hits where it pretty much grinds to a halt. And in other movies, it hits. Are you kidding me?
This is.
Oh, please go.
Please go this time.
I'm gonna honk, and if they don't go, I'm gonna
go. Yeah. Honk.
Hey.
It's a... Oh, my Lord.
Was she not paying attention?
Not at all.
What the hell? All right, so...
This is about to be one... This was a chase scene, and she brought it to a grinding halt.
That was a big metaphor for the movie.
It really was.
We had not hit a stop sign, and all of a sudden we hit someone who wasn't paying attention while they were driving, and we grinded to a halt. Yeah, so in any other movie, such a meadow like that would have been fine. But when you open and maintain a movie at literally breakneck pace,
yeah,
and all of a sudden you stop and everyone talks very quietly, I shifted. I don't know if you noticed, I was shifting my seat a lot.
Yeah,
because I got tired.
It wouldn't have been such a painful slow part of the movie if they hadn't set that pace the entire movie. I think they easily could have brought in, and it's not a story that requires a lot of backstory and everything else.
Yeah.
But I think just a little more backstory at the beginning, a little more setup would have made that not feel as slow, because you would have, had a little slower of an entrance rather than you're going 100 miles a minute after he, eats a lizard. Like, that's it.
Right.
So, and especially because there's not really, I don't know, I'm a fan of post-apocalyptic games and movies and things like that. That whole idea of the world after some sort of,
horrific,
incident, like that interests me to a point where, like, that sort of lore, sucks me in. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to see how we got to that place, and I don't know if that's ever explained in any of the other Mad Max movies, but it's clear that they're not, like, real concerned with the other Mad Max movies.
No.
So I wish they could have introduced the universe a little more, since it's the first movie, and I assume they're probably going to try and make another one, but I don't really know.
I believe they are.
It seems like something, I mean, they made more of the first time around, so I would assume they make more than one the second time around.
Well, two things I know. I know that, this is the same Max Rockatansky or whatever that Mel Gibson played.
Right.
So already, it's a weird thing where you recast him. And two, I know for a fact George Miller himself said, the reason we made it post-apocalyptic was because we didn't have any money. So we had to shoot, like, out in the desert and in these already, like, run-down buildings. Like, it was literally a creative choice that was made based on budget.
Right.
I don't think they weren't originally going to go that route, apparently. So I feel like it's really a setting, and they didn't really want to or care to traverse that territory about how we got to that place.
Right.
And I don't think they ever will.
And I don't know, that just kind of bugs me personally, because...
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess if this movie does well enough, they might go back and revisit it, because it's clear that he's had, like, this story, how he ended up there in the first place, mm-hmm. and how he was being chased. So it's sort of an open beginning as well as sort of an open end. You don't really know, what happens at the Citadel afterwards, I guess. Although you can assume things got better, clearly.
Right, yeah. It was good, but, like, everyone was saying how amazing it was, and I think...
I think it really built expectation from... And I'm not sure what all of that was about. It was still good, still a solid movie.
It was still pretty... I mean, there were still a bunch of awesome moments in it.
Great action. Some of the CGI was a little to me.
A lot of the CGI was...
Especially during the dust storm.
I really loved the dust storm.
I liked it, but I don't know.
Here's my biggest annoyance in the movie. My biggest annoyance is when they were clearly slightly fast forwarding. Did you ever notice that? There are a lot of scenes, him escaping in the beginning.
Like the guitar guy, when he fell off, and, like, they slowed it down and then they sped it back up.
That was my favorite part. The guitar guy. Or maybe just him in general.
That was just so random.
Oh, I loved it.
I liked it, too. Like, I've got no problems with it. But that was just another part where it seemed like they were always speeding him up.
All right, well, for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, in... like Arthurian legend and stuff like that, there was always minstrels that traveled with knights, playing a lute or something.
Yeah.
So the version of that in this universe is a gimp who is chained to the front of a big rig, surrounded by speakers, and he's playing a double neck electric guitar that shoots fire. And
you've got the chorus of drum guys on the back. I think on the back of that same rig.
Well,
I don't know.
It's on the back of the same one, and
that was interesting. I liked it.
Awesome. Like, every time they showed him, I just wanted to cheer. I was like, this is so awesome. Like, if you notice, he's playing along to the score.
Yeah. They did that. They did that a lot through the movie, where it was clear, like, they used the engines revving as part of the score.
Yeah, I thought
which
that
was good,
cool.
But at the same time, I think they could have backed off on the volume. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a movie theater thing or the movie itself, but it seemed like they were a little heavy-handed with just the crazy engine roars. Although I guess that's designed because that's the whole setting of the movie basically is on top of huge, big rig engines with people shooting ether into them so they'll spit fire out and go faster.
I just love that. I just like the idea of that GIMP being up there. Presumably he does not come down. He doesn't.
He's there.
He's not allowed to eat or drink or poop.
Overall, solid movie, but I just overhyped for whatever reason. I don't think it was bad. I think it executed itself pretty well.
Yeah.
Except for the lull when they just. I hate that they just were like, oh, yeah. Maybe he's right. Maybe we should go back. And he didn't, bring this up beforehand. He was clearly working on something, and then he was like, no, I'll let him drive off into the salt. And then he was like, actually, we should go the other way.
Yeah, I guess so.
He probably could have brought this up before, we started driving that way. But sure, okay.
And by the way, did you has his ghost daughter, saved his life?
Yeah. The ghost daughter was just strange. But that's another part that, I think they could have expanded on at the beginning.
That's more for the fans, because that's kind of how he gets started, I think, is his family gets killed or something. But I think that was their version of reestablishing that, but not try not to waste time with it.
Yeah.
They made him seem like a spaz.
But, yeah. But I guess, if they decided to go with a setup prequel route, that would be the story, because it was so clearly part of this movie, but it wasn't explained past, just you would save us, you said you would save us.
Yeah.
I think it would be good to see that, but I get why they
what
did
had happened.
Yeah, how he got to that place.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I mean, I imagine that would be a much slower story, too.
I feel they were just trying
to... blockbuster action film.
What I've noticing with stuff, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, is when they are doing stuff trying to establish a property, I've noticed that they focus more on tone than anything else, which I'm fine with. They're trying to show people these are the kinds of movies these are going to be now. And I guess maybe they're being overly cautious and not trying to load it up too much. And maybe for them what was important in this one was branding Tom Hardy as Mad Max.
Right.
And, and re-immersing you in the world. And trying not to inundate it with too much character, because who wants that? You know what I mean? I was telling, we were talking about Daredevil. One of the points I brought up was that I feel like they're just trying to establish this world, and they were trying not to set the bar too high and try to juggle too much at once, which you could argue is a sort of a cop-out, but at the same time, it's well... If they're trying to play it safe, though, and get this franchise started and then
makes sense.
And then enhance the next one,
right?
Then maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're just look, Tom Hardy's Mad Max, and he's not even really the main character of this film.
No, Charlize Theron is the main character.
Yeah, Furiosa is basically the star. I mean, her name's even up higher than his physically on the screen. But he's the title character. Right. But it's not. But he's just sort of a guy who happens to be there.
Yeah.
This whole breaking the wives out of the Citadel and trying to smuggle them out. This does not involve him.
It was never part of his plan.
Yeah, he's only there because one of the drivers is getting blood from him, and he really wants to go.
And he happened to get captured right before all this shit happened.
Right, and they're connected already by a bloodline, so he wants to take his blood bank with him.
Yeah, which I like that. I like that part of the movie. I like that character because you could see he realized in this world you have to do whatever is going to let you live for the next 24 hours or something.
Right.
You are day by day trying to survive, and he realized after fighting so hard to get back to the wives that, well, now I'm screwed. I can't go back now.
Yeah.
So I liked that transition in the character, but obviously Furiosa was the lead, and I thought
badass.
I thought she did a great job.
That was awesome.
I really did hear a lot of random stuff about I guess I don't know who, but people getting upset about her being cast as a lead, and I thought it was great, and Charlize Theron's hot all the time, so I don't care. I don't care if she has a shaved head or not. Hot.
You just hurt the feminist arguments. And I'll tell you what, she is super hot.
I mean, but
I mean, I heard some people saying they're sort of branding Mad Max as like this feminist hero tale, and that's almost oversimplifying it. I mean, it's if you really want to champion the feminist cause, don't bring it up at all.
Yeah,
just cast people and just go.
Yeah,
but I will say, like she was the most watchable part of the movie. I mean, I liked Max, but she had the most charisma. She had the best moments, I think. Yeah. And she didn't have an ounce of, like, hesitation or I don't know, just not vulnerability, but weakness.
But you also got more of her story in the process, too, is, like, she was taken from her home and she was trying to get back with these wives, and then... Like, you see sort of the defeat when you see the whole, like, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, I've been gone so long.
Right.
And that life isn't available to me anymore. You really saw a whole arc from her, whereas with Max, I don't feel like you saw as much of an arc. You just saw him being injected into the situation and doing what he had to do to survive.
Yeah. What I don't like in movies is what occurred here, which is lots of ADR, lots of dubbing after the fact.
Yeah.
And I know they have to because they're out in, like, the desert, and I'm sure their sound was windy or something. Right. I can understand why they might have, like, audio
technical
problems.
issues with it.
But I really hate it because especially when Max talks, it was a lot like the Bane voice, which obviously it's the same actor, but that was also a voice that was dubbed in after the fact. Mm-hmm. And the clarity of it in the midst of everyone, like when Charlize talks, I can tell that. Look, I didn't work on the movie, I don't even know, but I felt like a lot of her dialogue was what was shot that day.
Yeah,
I felt like a lot of Tom Hardy's dialogue,
yelling over engines and things like that, and Tom Hardy's
and there's like unseen, like, I feel like you could tell that one. Like, even when she turned, I could tell when she was facing the mic and not. So I knew that was... But his was always, like, crystal clear. And I thought...
And he never... I can't think of a single instance where he really yelled either.
Yeah,
so exactly. Everything he had to say was sort of muttered like this. And it came through crystal clear, like you said, through all of the background mess.
And I guess that's just something I'm going to have to accept, but I really can't stand ADR. And I'm sure when they got back and they listened to all the audio, they were like, shit. Like, I'm not saying that they were like, hey, you know what, let's just ADR all of this just for the fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they weren't happy either, but it takes me out of it because I think of Tom Hardy just standing in, like, some sweatpants.
In a sound booth.
Yeah, in a sound booth with, like, an Evian. Like, someone like, you know. My name's Mad Max. My world is fire. And blood. So.
And tit milk.
And booby milk. I like how they hand it to the guy and he's like, taste this. Is this good milk? And he's just like, oh hell yeah.
This is the best.
This is prime. This is prime milk. Yeah.
Super weird.
Yeah, other than that, I mean, just a lot of people with gross tumors and
goiters and boils.
Yeah, and just a general, like, run and gun. Not like just I don't know, the editing. I don't know, a lot of these, like, snap cuts, these clearly fast forwarded things, like stuff that you don't see these days. Like I feel like you see that in a lot of, like, 80s horror or something where, like, it's sped up, but it's from a shaky cam, so you can tell, like, you can just tell from the movement that it was just fast-forwarded from a slower shot.
Yeah.
And they did it pretty well. I could still tell, though.
Yeah, I don't think it was...
Just a few things that made it either disorienting to watch or like, a pain to watch. Like, oh, okay, hey, slow down there, Slick.
All right.
It's fine. You know, these crane shots in the desert are doing it for me. How about just show me more of those? These weird handheld zoom-ins to, you know, Darth Vader's, you know, uncle, you know, with... Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah, I guess that's our thoughts on Mad Max.
My name's Mad Max.
My name's Mad Max. That's not a knife. This is a knife. I will give my 2 cents on Mad Men while we're sitting here, though. The Mad Men finale. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to keep it short because you covered it and John covered it extensively. Really enjoyed it. One of my favorite series. Like you, I jumped in probably, I think, started watching it live on season 5. I got it from a friend and just went through the DVDs and marathoned it. And really got sucked into the world. The 60s is just a fascinating time period anyway. But I really liked the finale. I liked Stan and Peggy getting together. I thought, like John said, that was always... if you had watched, it was there. They always bickered like an old married couple.
Yeah.
And then Peggy talking herself into realizing that she was in love with Stan was classic Peggy. I thought that was great.
Classic.
And then Stan, and then he runs across the office to her. I thought that was great. It wasn't forced because it really was always there.
It was set up, I think.
Yeah, it was set up, but it wasn't like... It seemed natural rather than one of the, like, if Don had come back to Betty and happily ever after before she died, like, that would have been ugly.
By
like,
the way,
that
I have cancer.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That would have been awkward and forced, whereas this wasn't quite so forced. It felt natural in the universe.
You should know I have cancer, but I've begrudgingly accepted it.
I do think January Jones did an excellent job the past 2 or 3, since really the last season, but she wasn't in it that much. But the parts that she was, excellent job, especially the last phone call she had with Don.
Oh, yeah.
Presumably, I don't think it was the last time they talked before she died.
Yeah.
But, you don't know for sure. But I think that was just... excellent, solid way. Betty was one of those universally hated characters for a lot of reasons. Although she got shat on a lot throughout the series.
You sort of realized toward the end how much she really had been had passively abused by many characters. By Don
and
by Henry,
else.
by Sally.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I think that was an excellent way to draw sympathy for a character and not. It was one of those, sad realities of the day. I'm sure that happened to hundreds and thousands of families,
Yeah.
And so I think that was a really great way to end her storyline. Joan, I got tired of by the end of the series, to be honest with you.
I really liked Joan's stuff.
A lot of people did. I just personally, I did not care at the end about what happened to Joan. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me, but... when the guy walked out on her and was like, I'm not doing this, I was like, good for you, dude. You don't need that. But, that is Joan's character. She's always driven. I get it. But I just didn't care at that point. She had lost me. Don, the way everything ended with Don, I like that the end was open to interpretation. Because presumably, a lot of people think that he goes back and he creates that cokead. Mm-hmm. But you can also just view it as...
That's the state of mind he's in.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's how I read it as first. And then
I did too. I did too. That's the way I thought of it at first. And the more I read, the more I thought about it. I kind of get that he would go back. But I like to think that he didn't. Mm-hmm. Just because I don't care for him to go back.
Well, and it works on any level. It works because even if you prefer to think that he did not go back to McCann and make the ad, it still works as him arriving at a better place and having a new outlook.
But that's the whole, it was cyclical. Don always went through these things.
Yes.
And, felt like he had an epiphany, came back, and then, started drinking again and doing everything else that he'd been used to. So it's not a stretch to think that he did go back and made one of the greatest ads of all time. And, probably had a lot of sex because of it, presumably, because that's what Don does.
Yeah.
But I guess it's whether you choose to view it in a sort of an optimistic, well, maybe, he changed some things, or more of a, same old Don.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a disservice. I think it was perfect, honestly, because it gives you that option of, believe what you want to believe happened. I don't think that there really needed to be any sort of neatly tied up ending for Don, because that, whether he chose one way or the other, it didn't end up neatly tied together. I promise you that. So whichever route he took, I'm sure, was just Don. But it's not, you don't have to feel forced and pigeonholed into like, oh, Don went back and did this and, you know, made amends with Betty and all this sort of stuff. You can just view it as whatever you want to, and I like that. That said, the actual ding and the playing of the Coca-Cola ad at the end of the finale, I laughed. It was just so goofy. I like the way they did it and everything, but like when it happened, when it came on, and I was watching it, I was just like, what?
Tara was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, that's what I did. I knew the ad and I got it. Like, I understood where the ad came from, and it was Coca-Cola,
right.
and they...
Do you know it's...
McCann, teased him with Coca-Cola, but...
Well, you know that's a McCann Erickson ad.
Yeah,
like
yeah. And McCann, I don't know if you've read or seen any of it. McCann, the actual agency, has live tweeted Mad Men for several seasons now. They used it as like a great advertising for themselves.
Yeah, for real.
I can't blame them. But goofy, just the way it happened, but I liked it. So overall, Mad Men, one of my favorite series of all time.
Yeah.
So I'm sad it's over, but I'm glad the way it finished. So
yeah.
Anyway,
right,
I think that's it. We can get out of this car and go grab some beer.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, well, thanks for listening this week. If you want to hear more of us, you can follow us on Podbean, hoopercastpod.podbean.com, or on iTunes, or on Twitter at HooperCast, or Tumblr at hoopercastpod.tumblr.com, or a blogger at hoopercastpod.blogspot.com. On both Tumblr and Blogger, you can donate to the PayPal link if you so choose, or you can also go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/HooperCast, or on YouTube, HooperCastPod. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week.